The owl hoots at midnight. That's right, gamers. That's the traditional greeting of spies making a handoff in a public place. Today's game, Agendas, is a hidden roles game where players try to pass off packages to each other without being detected by their opposing factions. We're going to fix up the rules in today's episode of Game Design Game. Game Design Game. Episode 1. Before I get into today's game, I wanted to clarify a few of the rules that we invented in episode 0. The bonus rule A, hello rule. When I first said it in episode 0, I said my greeting word. As should be obvious from today's greeting, a phrase is also appropriate. So today's greeting is 5 words. The first 3 people to repeat my greeting in the comment feed will get a bonus point for their score in this episode. Also, I wanted to specify that for the episode rule, the keyword rule, it's okay to count simple variants on the root word that you've chosen. So if you chose the word find, it's totally appropriate to include find, finder, and found, but not homonyms or unrelated words like profound or find with an ed or refind. I'll be maintaining the rules along with their clarifications in my Discord channel, so check out the links in the text below. And without further ado, I'll move on to agendas. A little bit about how agendas came into being. At my previous day job, several of us would play board games at lunchtime. And some of our favorite games to play involved hidden roles and social deduction. There are several games of this type, some of the most famous being Werewolf, Mafia, and The Resistance. In our lunchtime play over the years, we played thousands of games of The Resistance. We modified it with house rules to balance our number of players and our play styles. There's a chance we've played The Resistance more than the initial developers. One problem we ran into after much time was that it was too popular. We had too many players and the Resistance couldn't easily handle it. The game had trouble dealing with large numbers of players. So I wanted to develop a similar game, a hidden roles game, that would handle larger groups and be expandable, if need be, to handle even more players over time. As I was gathering the materials for today's episode, I discovered that I could not find the setup rules or any printed rules sheet. The only rules I have are reference cards from the card deck that I made for this game. So in today's episode, we are going to be recreating the base rules for my agendas game, and I'll show you the materials that I do still have. Before I get into it, I wanted to talk about board games in general. Board games is a broad category. Typically, a board game is played on a table with players around the table moving pieces on a physical board. But we also use board games to refer to just about any table game, which includes certain types of card games, bluffing games, drawing games, and many dice games are considered board games, even if there's no physical board. Board games is a bit of a catch-all for every type of game that doesn't fall into a more specific category. There are so many possibilities for what a board game can be, including table-spanning games that take hours and hours to play, such as Civilization, games with lots of pieces that you build up into structures, like the classic Mousetrap. There's a simple card game called The Mind, which is played silently as players try to cooperatively stack cards according to certain rules. And, of course, hidden roles games such as The Resistance and Agendas. So if you're itching to make games like I often do and you're not quite sure how to go about it, board games can be prototyped with many different odds and ends that you'll find around your house, including poker chips, dice, index cards, toys, glass beads, just about anything that you've got sitting around the house or that you can make by yourself can be a board game prototype piece. I frequently prototype my own games using poker chips and toys as stand-ins. Sometimes I'll print my prototype cards using business card sheets that you can find in most office supply stores. Agendas is a hidden roles game in which each player has a secret role that comes with a secret agenda, hence the name of the game. I made this game to play with a large group of people who enjoyed the resistance, but when we had too many at one sitting, the resistance couldn't handle it. So I'm going to re-describe my exploration phase. This is a retrocreative or retrospective on the creation of agendas. Exploration phase. I wanted a secret role game that could handle 12 people, but could also handle fewer people, potentially as few as 5 or 6, and that potentially could be expandable to even more people if need be. In addition, this has to be a non-player elimination game. Many hidden role games are player elimination, which means somebody is unable to play for 75% of the game or more, which is not a feature that I like. So my secret role game, I want everyone to be able to play all the way through. In developing a hidden role game, the theme is very important. So eventually I settled on the idea of secret agents, which seems to fit very nicely with the concept of hidden roles. The secret agents concept also makes it easy to expand the game from a small number of players to a large number of players based on adding new factions or adding new roles to a given faction. So for any particular play session, you can choose the setup that fits your group size. As I was preparing for today's episode, I dug up all the materials that I had and discovered that I could not find the rules anywhere. All I had was a little card that we would hand out to players during play with sort of a summary of their turn steps. But I had no setup information, and I'm not sure what happened to it. So, if you're developing games for yourself, here's the lesson. Put them in some place where you'll be able to find them later. If you develop on the computer, as I do for most of my games, structure your files in a way that you'll be able to track games down many years after you've thought you were done with them. So what I do have is a stack of printed sample cards that we actually played with. This is essentially the prototype. I'll get into a little bit later how I made the prototype, but first I want to talk a little bit more about the features of the game. So the concept of agendas is that factions of secret agents are trying to make a handoff. They have some sort of package, and they want to hand it off to another agent on their same team, but they don't know who's on their team at the start of the game. So they have to identify their allies, pass the packages around, and along the way, their opponents may be trying to steal their package or make their own handoff. There are a few different victory conditions, but essentially the high-end goal is to get the package to your handler before any of the other teams. Since I can't find the setup rules, we're going to recreate those here. I'm going to reconstruct all of the rules that I don't have, and along the way I'll also show you how to make prototype cards using business card print sheets if you work on the computer like I do. Once I've recreated the rules, I'll do a little sample play. All the cards will be face up, which kind of defeats the purpose, but to show you the logistics of how it works. And then talk about next steps. If I were to go forward with this, there are probably more refinements that this would need to go through before I want to consider producing this or distributing it. Also, I've edited this video down quite a bit, and if you want to see the entire video with all the details along the way of making this game, that video is on Patreon. The links are in the text below. The prototype materials I have essentially consist of the cards that we would use to actually play the game in a live session. I have a set of 12 role cards, so each player would be assigned a role. The roles are courier, who begins the game with a package, a handler who in order to win, must receive the package. A fixer and a decoy, who are additional roles that can help to pass information or cover for their team. So those 4 roles appear in each of 3 teams. The agents have an information package that they need to pass off to their handler. The operatives have an explosive package that they are hoping to pass off to the agent's handler. And the spies have an espionage package that they are also hoping to pass off to the agent's handler. In addition to their roles, each player is going to receive a package. I don't have these setup rules, so I'm going to have to recreate how these packages are handed out. The intent is that the couriers for each team begin the game with the actual package belonging to their team, but it has to be done in a way that does not signal everyone at the table who is a courier, because their packages are the most valuable. Everybody else begins the game with a decoy package. It has no value. It is simply there so that everyone has a package. Each player will receive a set of action cards so that they can see the rules of each action, and on their turn, this is played round robin style, on their turn they will choose one of the available actions, play it face up, and it will affect their turn and possibly the entire round. Very briefly, the actions include assess, which is to peek another player's role. This is essentially how you find out who's on your team and who's trying to receive or hand off packages. There's a conceal action, which is to hide yourself. Essentially, it blocks actions against you that you do not permit. Handoff is a package swap. You will exchange your package card with that of another player. Inspect action, you can peek at the package in front of you. After play begins and packages swap from handoffs, you might not know what you're holding on to. The distract action causes some other player to miss their next turn. The shadow action allows you to copy the action of some other player at the table. So whatever they do, you will do as well. Finally, the escape action is the one that ends the game. You are essentially signaling for your team to make their way to the exits, and then we will check for game end conditions. Each player also receives a card that has a brief explanation of all of the actions they can take and their goals. Ultimately, the goal of each team is to get their package into the hands of the agent handler. There are alternate end conditions that involve getting packages into other people's hands. For example, getting the operative's explosive package into the operative handler's hands can be a victory for the agents. Part of what I need to do for this game is to recreate the setup rules of how to hand out the roles and packages, and for perhaps to revisit or re-explore how some of those victory condition rules play out. In that it is not completely symmetric. Not everyone is passing off to their own handler. I'll be talking about why this handoff system is not quite symmetric. For agendas, as I've shown, I already have some cards left over from my prototype a few years back, and I also have the file I used to create those cards. So I'm going to show you what that looks like and talk a little bit about how you can make your own card sheet prototypes. So this is an editor, and what I've done is created a table with rows and columns, 5 columns across and 2 rows on a page, and that matches the business card printable sheets that you can find in most office supply stores or online. And this prints out 10 business cards. The dimensions on a business card printable sheet are very strict, so you may have to print test sheets to make sure that your images fit before you actually go printing them on the more expensive and hard to work with perforated business card sheets. So the columns, or the short side of a business card, is 2 inches wide. The rows, or the long side of a business card, is 3.5 inches. So you'll want to do fixed row and column heights to match the size of the cards you're using. You'll also need very specific page margins to center your card sheet perfectly. And this may vary based on your printer. Some printers, unfortunately, require a much larger margin at one edge of the page, which can restrain or restrict how you print your cards. For my layout here, top margin of 0.7 inches, left margin 0.6 inches, bottom margin 0.5 inches, and right margin 0.4 inches. And this centered my cards fairly well. You'll notice that for the quote-unquote portrait orientation of a business card, you want the landscape orientation of the business card printable sheets, because most business cards are wider than they are tall. But for this game, I'm rotating them to be more traditional card up and down. So, business card sheet, 10 cards per page. This page is all duplicates of the rules handout card. So players would receive this as a way for them to review the in-play rules. On the backs of those cards, a slightly different view of similar information. This just outlines what the different actions are for, which can help players when they're playing the game. And each player will receive one of these cards and flip it to whichever side helps them at any given time. This sheet, as you can see, contains some roles, contains some packages, and in a special package card called First Player, which is used to determine in this secret rule game which person goes first. We'll talk about this more when I go to recreating the rules, because that particular information was lost. And I lost the prototype rules. These are some more roles and packages. This sheet is 10 decoy packages. The decoy packages in the game are just there to confuse people about where the real packages are. This page is the card backs for the page I showed previously. I'll go back to that in a second. You can see there are 4 packages on the left, and there are 6 roles on the right. And if I go back to one of these pages, you can see there are 4 packages on the right and 6 roles on the left. And that is because when you print a sheet, both sides, you're going to have to mirror it in one direction in order to get the fronts and the backs to match up. So in this case, you can see I've mirrored it left to right. So roles on the left, packages on the right on one side, roles on the right, packages on the left on the other side. And that way when I print them out, all the fronts and all the backs will match up properly. I recommend, especially if you're new to making your own cards, try this out a few times on cheaper paper. The business card perforated stock can be a little expensive, and it's a little trickier to run in printers. Also, depending on your printer type, my recommendation is rather than using automatic page flipping, some printers offer that, most printers these days I find, you probably want to print one side of these cards and then put them back in your printer sheet tray and run the other side. Some of the automatic flippers will break apart the perforated business cards and jam up your printer and make a big mess. And you can waste a lot of sheets that way. It's a little easier to just print one side at a time. And you can print several backs and then put them all back in and print several fronts, as long as you're careful about the ordering of your pages. Again, if you're new to this, take it slow, do one sheet at a time until you kind of get the hang of it. This page goes with the decoy packages. These are the backs for all of the decoy packages. This page format now has a role, a package, 7 actions, and the summary in-play card. And this sheet is all the materials that a single player would need in play. And so by printing this back once per player, in this case 12 times, you get the sheets for every role. And so the front of that Again, you can see where the roll and package are on the right on the back side. They're on the left on the front side, so that everything mirrors out appropriately. And then you've got your 7 actions and your rules cheat side on the bottom right on the front and on the bottom left on the back. And so by using these action cards, it means the player can just keep in front of them the action that they took most recently, which comes up in some of the other rules, such as on your turn, you get to choose an action, but not the action you played last turn and not the action chosen by the previous player. So by keeping these cards in front of you, there's never any confusion about what was your last play, what was your previous player's play. In addition, this talks about each roll prohibits one action. So you can see the courier may not distract. And it also says that on the distract card. Courier may not distract here. And so in a hidden roles game, one of the important features is the ability for players over time to get good guesses about which players are playing which roles, so that they can get an advantage by taking educated guesses as opposed to needing to absolutely confirm, or in this case, assess everyone's role themselves. The idea in secret information games is trying to get more information than you pay for. So action is paying for information. Any information you can get otherwise is an advantage to your play. So courier may not distract, and what that means is when you see someone play a distract action, you know that player is not the courier. And so if you're trying to locate a courier, that's one less person you have to worry about. So in addition, this has the agent factions, couriers package. So when we reconstruct the rules, we'll talk about what this means. Keep only if agent courier. So this is the agent courier. The information package belongs to them at the start of the game. We'll have to reconstruct how it gets into their hands without everyone knowing who they are. And then this also includes the victory condition. It says any team, so not just the agents, but any team, victory condition if your handler has the information package. And this first victory, I believe I was using that to resolve ties. So if there were potentially multiple win conditions in play, this is the most important one. So the next 2 sheets are just cards for other roles and other factions. So you'll see that each card has 2 icons. So this has sort of an envelope and a star. This one has an envelope and an iron cross. These are just wingdings used for prototype purposes. If this were to go into production, obviously you'd want new and unique art. So you can see that the spy courier still has the envelope, and so that's the top icon is your role icon, and the bottom icon is your faction icon. So the spies have a little target symbol in this version. The fixers now have a different role icon, a little telephone in this case, and you can see I got fixers for 3 factions. And so these icons, and combined with I gave them all different colors, just make it a little easier at playtime for players to recognize who's on which team. Handler has a hand as an icon. And then finally, decoy has this little turning arrow icon. And so that's a front side sheet for all 12 roles in the current version of the game. Here's a second copy of the rule back, or of the card back sheet. So one thing as I went through these materials, I noticed that in this format where everybody's got their role, their package, their actions, the one card that was lost out of all of this was the first player card that I showed near the beginning, which is here. So this card did not make it into the new version of my prototype cards. So, and I think it still has an important part in the role. So I will need to figure out a new place to put this card. And also, I believe as we get into making the rules, I am going to want more packages than players. So I will probably still need a decoy package sheet like this, and I'll put the first player card on this sheet because I won't need necessarily 10 of them. So those are the existing cards materials, and next we'll get into reconstructing the rules. All right, time to reconstruct the rules that I lost. So let's see if I can maybe zoom in here, make this easier to read. And depending on how you like to work, you can start formatting as you go, or you can come back and do a formatting pass later. Game of spies and making secret handoffs in a public place. So none of this is the production text, so I'm not too concerned with making this super slick and attention-getting yet. This is largely to get myself in the right mindset, which can be really important when you're making a theme-based game, the way this one is themed around spies. Just need to keep myself in that handoff, and so I added the public place detail here because that's part of why different factions can interact. Sort of represents the sort of movie spy moment of somebody puts a sandwich bag down on the bench and someone else picks it up. So that's essentially the basis of this game. And I'm just going to start typing, and I'll try and talk through what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So, concept. Again, this is not rules for publication. This is rules for clarification. Players each take a secret roll, and couriers must get their packages to their handlers. All right, I'm going to stop saying everything I type, and instead I'll try to talk a little more abstractly. Right, so the basis of this is to allow teams to interact, and with most board games, the startup or the beginning of the game is about the materials needed to play. I'm going to call this a 4 to 12 player game in this version. I don't think I can work with fewer than 4, and obviously it would take some play testing to really determine if a 4-player game is actually interesting. I think it would probably fall apart pretty quickly. I think 6 could work well. 4 is probably a stretch. Right now I only have 12 rolls, so 12 players is the maximum, but I can see ways to expand on that concept by every new faction adds 4 maximum players, since there's 4 roles, or adding a new role to the game would add potentially 3 more players, since there are 3 factions in the game. Materials to play this game. Roll cards. I'm going to call it 12x since that's what we have for now. Package cards. We're going to do more than 12. For now I'm going to call it 16 package cards. 3 times, or information package, espionage package, explosive package, first player card, and then 12 decoy packages. Let's break this up since it's a little messy. Turn this into some sort of list. Okay, 12 rule reference cards. And there's going to be 12 times 7 is 84 action cards. 12 times each of 7 actions. So, with the correct materials, how do we set up the game? Select. I'm talking over my words again. So part of the setup is how do we determine which roles are in play based on the number of players. So I'm going to create a table. Well, I don't actually know how many columns I need yet. So number of players, role cards, package cards. Assuming 4 is our minimum, we're going to use agents, courier, handler, and spies, courier and handler, agents, the information package, and we'll need we'll call it first player package. Trying to think how many packages we'll want to start with. So I may revisit this. Right now, 6 packages for 4 players might not be enough. All right, so I'm going to focus on the roles first. I will come back to the packages once I figure out how to deploy packages to roles at playtime. So 5 players is a bit trickier. It means what we're going to do in the 5-player game is hand out, or is have 6 roles potentially in play, and one of them will secretly not be live. And players won't know which one's out of play at the start of the game. That's how we will handle odd teams, so you won't know if you're on a 3-player team or a 2-player team at the start of the game. Next question is for a 6-player game. I could do 2 teams of 3 or 3 teams of 2. I think the 3 teams of 2 is more exciting. It will take some play testing, I think, to determine whether that is actually fun or just messy. And so this game we will add the explosives package of the operatives into play. In the 7-player game is a 3-player team versus 2 2-player teams. Or a 4-player team versus a 3-player game. Which of those makes for a better experience? Well, we'll set it up as 2 teams. All right, for purposes of getting through this more quickly, I'm going to start abbreviating heavily. Actually, 9 and 8 are going to use the same set of players. Just going to go get 10, 11, and 12 ready. All right, so 12 we know uses all the roles. All right, so there's our first pass at setup information. So you pull aside the roles and role selection, shuffle roles, deal 1 to each player. Actually, that's going to just be a general rule at the end of setup. Shuffle available roles. Deal 1 to each player. Face down. It's a secret rule game after all. So when we're handling an odd number of players, or any time the number of players doesn't divide evenly by the number of teams, we're going to shuffle some roles and remove some from play. And this will mix up the teams a little bit. So here we have 2 teams of 8. These are all going to be very similar based on the number. Use all. So here we have 12 roll cards and 10 players. So shuffle all 3 fixers and remove 2 from. So in these odd player games, there's also an interesting element where, for example, in this 10-player game, so we have 12 potential rolls in play, but only one of the 4, or one of the 3 possible fixers. Two of the fixers are being removed, 1 fixer is in play. And what that means at playtime is that the player with a fixer roll knows that they are on a 4-player team. And that might give them interesting ways to interact with the game, knowing that they're kind of the odd person out. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of play testing to find these strategies. So I'm just spotting the potential for interesting strategy. Whether it actually turns out to be useful or not, it's hard to say at this stage. So once we have all of our available rolls, we deal 1 to each player. Call this step 1, and packages. Actually, let's do distribute action cards. And then rules summary. Give each player 1 set of action cards and 1 rules summary card. So players should check their roll cards, determine their team. Couriers will need to pick up their starting package in step 3. So this is a preview that couriers have a little bit of extra work to do when it comes time to distribute package cards. So how do we avoid giving away too much information? We always need to handle the case where a card needs to go all the way around a table. But we need to do it in a way that doesn't give away too much information. So that means I need to split the deck, and for each split deck to get all the way around the table to the person that started with it, so I've had a little think, and what needs to happen is that players need 2 opportunities to pick up their package, or couriers, I should say, need 2 opportunities to pick up their package, not just 1, and that gives them the option to bluff in different ways by either picking up their package the first time it comes into their hands or the second time it comes into their hands. Because players at the very beginning of the card queue and at the very end of the card queue give away different kinds of information. So to do that, I'm going to delve back into the rules page here. And change how we pass these around. So combine package cards into a deck, shuffle the deck. It's going to be this 2-hand system still. And I think the only difference is until both hands have returned to their original holders twice. Discard unused package cards, which should all be decoys. So this 2 passes around the table swapping solves the problem of people getting too much information. Leaves a little bit of strategy in choosing when you pick your package. Yep, I think that solves it. It's a little clunky. I'll keep in the back of my mind if there's ways to improve this. All right, so instead of passing hands to the right, we're going to pass them, instead of passing them around to the left, we're going to pass them to the right, so that passing along the first player card is a little less suspicious. It's a move someone might take in order to deliberately make someone think they're a courier when they're not, without being quite as punishing on them because they might get to go second or third. And so now just clarifying, only the courier may keep their corresponding package. Anyone else must pass along a package that belongs to another player. Okay. So now we have the hard part of the setup handled, and that is distribution of packages. I think everything from this point will be easy. Okay, so final step is reveal first player. That's the setup is concluded. Let's put some headers in here so it's a little easier for me to scan through this later. Play. So now we're going to review the action rules, and I'm going to keep these as I had them on the cards from my original prototype. So you may not choose the action card of your prior turn. You may not choose the action card of the previous player, action card chosen by the previous player. Each roll prohibits one of the actions. You may not choose the action card prohibited by your roll. Okay, and now I'm going to review the actions. Okay, final action, escape. Check for game end. 1. Everyone peeks at their own package. Who doesn't want to peek at their package? With non-decoy package reveals game end. So anytime a handler has a package other than a decoy, the game ends. If no team wins, your team reveals rules and you cannot escape again. So the escape action is how the game ends. It is a risky action in that if you are wrong about the state of the game, your team gives up some information and you may not escape again. Others on your team still can, so you're not entirely blocked there. Probably I'll need to look at these end conditions a little bit. So I didn't make the end conditions entirely symmetric. I could have just said getting the package to your own handler is a win condition. There's a couple problems with that. One is the tie results are a lot less fair when it's that symmetric because it's very easy to have multiple people win. And why is one team better than the other? So in this case, it's based on the package, not on the team per se. So the information package is the priority. Any handler that gets a hold of it wins, and that beats any other win conditions. Second is the explosive package, and in this case, it's the hot potato. You don't want it. So if the agent is holding it, the operatives win. If the operatives are holding it, the agents win. And then third is the espionage package, which works in a similar fashion. And I'm a little worried about those second two goals. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense for the spies to have lower priority than the operatives in terms of resolving these win conditions. But everyone has 2 win conditions, and it does place the highest emphasis on the information package. So I may revisit these, and it will probably be more apparent what I want to do if I introduce a 4th faction. Then this imbalance will probably be a little clearer, and maybe I'll have a better idea of what to do about it. So I know this video has been pretty long already, so I think I'm going to end it here for now. This is my recreated prototype rules for agendas, and this game is now / once again playable. So let me know what you think in the comments, or visit my Discord channel to talk about these rules and maybe some better ways to either distribute those packages or to modify these end conditions. And maybe I'll figure out a way to run a game of agendas on Discord. Let me think about that. All right, now for a simple play test. Downside of a hidden roles game is it's not nearly as interesting when one player knows everything that's going on. But I will do my best to emulate what the players know and could suspect based on the information they get. And what you're seeing here is a setup. So 4-player game with purple, yellow, blue, and green. They have their action cards yet. And I'm showing in the center, there are 4 roles that are going to be assigned randomly to them. And then at the top, there are the packages for each of the teams, the first player package card, and 3 decoy packages to test the package distribution rules. Here is the initial deal of the setup. Each player has their role face down and their initial package face down before doing any of the package passing rules. I've also given each player an index card, which I can use for my play testing to keep notes of what each player actually knows and possibly some things that they could suspect or guess based on other information or other events that happen around the table. So while this is how people would normally play the game, I'm going to flip the roles face up for this play test because I'm playing all the roles. I'm going to know who's who anyway, and it'll just speed things up if you can watch the roles and play along. Here are the roles and initial packages face up. We have purple is the agent's courier. Yellow is the operative's courier. Blue is the agent's handler. Green is the operative's handler. And next step will be to do the package distribution. I'm going to take the packages. They would be split into 2 decks, in this case, or 2 hands, 1 card per hand, and on opposite sides of the table. So 1 card to the purple operative, 1 card to the blue operative, and since we're playing face up, I will show the contents of these packages. And they will each pick a card to keep and a card to pass. Purple is required to pass the explosive package. They don't get any information from having it, so they're going to pass that along. Blue is a handler and can keep their first player card, and they will pass the decoy package. Now yellow and green have to choose. We're going to pass around the table twice. Yellow, the operative courier, has just received his package. He doesn't have to keep it on the first go around, but only one person has seen that card, and the person who passed it, purple, has no idea where that card's going to end up. So yellow is just going to take advantage of this very sparse information at the start of the game to keep their explosive package and pass along the decoy package. Green is a handler and is required to pass along the information package. They cannot keep it and hang on to it, so they must pass it to purple courier. Now purple and blue once again have to pass along their packages. Purple has just received their package from green. It could have come from blue, they don't know, but they know that it's theirs to keep, and so they don't get a lot of information from having it. Green started with it, so they never got any information about it. So purple is going to go ahead and hang on to it now and assume that nobody's getting a lot of information from them keeping it. They're going to pass the decoy package along. Similarly, blue is going to keep their first player package past the decoy card. So this is now yellow and green's turn. Yellow is going to pass the decoy package and green is going to pass the decoy package. The cards have now made 1 circuit around the table. We're going to go a second time around the table in normal play, but there's no requirement to actually play that out because we know everyone's just going to keep passing the decoy packages. And when it gets around a second time to purple and blue, the remaining decoy packages are set aside. And then we reveal first player is blue, and they replace their first player package with a decoy package. After revealing first player, take a decoy package. So blue is first player. This is actually my second playtest attempt. I forgot one of the action restriction rules, which is each roll is restricted against a certain action. So I took an incorrect action and didn't notice until too late. So I'm going to restart from this point, and I'm going to remove the offending action card from each player's deck. So couriers are not allowed to distract. Handlers are not allowed to shadow. All right, so I have removed the disallowed action from each player's pool. Now blue player gets to choose. They have really no good information or guesses from the package distribution phase. So they want to assess so that they can get information. Since they don't know any player's team right now, they don't know who's friend or foe, they are going to assess randomly. It wouldn't be random if you're a human being playing, but I have too much information, and randomness represents ignorance. So 1, 2 is green, 3, 4 is purple, 5, 6 is yellow. They're going to assess purple. They learn that purple is the agent courier. Much like blue, green has no information. They would love to assess, but they are not allowed to. That action is blocked because blue has just used it. And similarly, because they are a handler, they are not allowed to shadow, which would be another way to potentially get information on someone else's turn. And so they're going to take a conceal action. And conceal just means they have to permit certain actions against them. Next is purple's turn. Purple knows that blue has assessed them. And blue at this point might say, hand off your package to me. But there's no reason for purple to trust that because, for example, if blue were the operative handler, they also want the information package. And purple right now can't tell green and blue apart. So I'm going to assume that blue is trying to make this case, but that purple is skeptical and doesn't want to just hand over their package too easily. Purple is also going to assess. And the question is, do they assess blue or do they assess someone else? So I'm going to give blue an advantage here and say that purple probably wants to assess blue, but might be a little suspicious. So purple will assess blue, learn that they are the handler, and understand the state of the game now. It is now yellow's turn. Yellow similarly is in the dark and doesn't have an easy way of assessing right now because purple just took that action and yellow therefore cannot. But yellow does know that they are trying to get that package into someone's hands. They don't know, like purple, they don't know whether blue was being sincere or trying to trick purple. They know purple was skeptical, and assuming purple doesn't say anything, they have no reason to. They still don't know whether blue and purple are allies or whether one of them is an enemy. So being the operatives and having not a lot of good options right now, they're going to go for a chaos play. They're going to do a handoff. They're going to get that explosive package out into the field. Playing handoff will block blue from doing the handoff that they asked for earlier and mix up the packages so that blue and purple don't have the packages that they started with. Now they don't know who's courier and who's handler yet. So I'm going to give them a 50-50 chance. They're going to hand off with blue. And it is now blue's turn. Blue may not assess and blue may not hand off. But what they can do is inspect. And by doing so, not only do they learn the package that they control, they are going to be able to figure out the entire board setup. So inspect is peek at your own package, and you may check again as much as needed. So if there's other handoffs, blue will be able to check right up until their next turn. Green is not allowed to inspect, wouldn't want to anyway, is not allowed to conceal, and as a handler is not allowed to shadow. And this is their first chance to get any information at all. So they're going to assess to try and get oriented. So they will assess yellow, learn that yellow is the operative courier and their friend. And it is purple's turn. Purple may not assess, both because they played it previously and because green just played it. So purple now has perfect information. They want to get their information package over to blue, and that is a handoff. This is a very easy action, no reason to randomize. Purple wants to get this information package over to blue. Purple's turn is over. We go on to yellow's turn. Yellow may not hand off. Handoff is not allowed. Escape would not help them. It would make the other team win. They don't need to inspect. So they can assume the board is the way it is. Inspect would tell them for certain if it's a bluff. Shadowing is not too helpful here. Concealing is defensive. That doesn't help them. So information, assess or inspect. So yellow is going to assess. It's not a great situation to be in. They're going to assess green just to make sure that green is on the up and up. They learn that green is the operative handler. Blue knows the full state of the game, and now blue can. So, escape action, check for game end. Everyone peeks at their package. Handler with a non-decoy package reveals, and game ends. So in this case, the agent's team has won. So purple and blue win, green and yellow lose. The game is over. All right, the game is over. That's a demonstration of how it plays. The 4-player game is very simple, but it actually, I think, worked fine. What I would need to do to really be more confident is to find out whether the first player advantage is always a win. Definitely being able to get that assess action first puts the odd number players, the first and third players, at a big advantage over the even players. But it won't always be teams on opposite sides of the board the way it was in this setup. So my suspicion is in a 4-player game, when the teams are on opposite sides of the board, the first player handler team has a huge advantage because they get to do that very first assess, and their team has more information than the other team. In larger games, I believe that advantage will be much less of an issue. In any case, this is the demonstration of play. I didn't see any huge issues other than what I just described, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. All right, each episode of Game Design Game, we're going to add rules to our Game Design Game. Last time we added the keyword rule and the bonus rule hello. So I'm going to make some new rules, and let's see. Rule 2, we're going to call it the numbers rule. Estimate the sum of number words I use during the episode. Score equals your estimate unless too high. So, much like the keywords rule, you are estimating. So, when I say a number word in the course of the video, that goes into the scoring cap. And if I say multiple number words, you get to add them all together, and that will determine the best possible score for the episode. So, in addition, I'm going to supplement a general rule. Only one episode rule per episode. What does that mean? That means either rule 1, keyword, or rule 2, numbers. So you don't have to or get to apply both of those rules. You're going to pick a rule for the episode for your scoring. If you really want to try and maximize your score, you could try to work out both, and then your final score entry is the one that you think is the best or most accurate. And we will discount earlier entries. However, as we get more bonus rules, you will be able to apply any number of bonus rules to your score. So let's set a bonus rule, B. Bonus rule B, I'm going to call the Discord rule. And this is +1 point if you have introduced yourself in the game design game Discord channel. The links to Discord are below in the text, and you can clarify which Discord handle in your use of the bonus rule if it doesn't match your YouTube handle for some reason. When scoring an episode, you can only apply one episode rule, but you can apply as many bonus rules as apply. So your Discord bonus +1 point will apply to every episode after you introduce yourself. A clarification for the numbers rules. If I say a string of numbers in a row, like 1, 2, those count as separate numbers unless in the context in which I say them, they're clearly representing a larger number. I'm not going to give an example of that right now because that would throw off the score for this episode. May not combine sequential numbers unless in context they are one larger number. One more clarification to the one episode rule per episode, and that is you may not use the same episode rule 2 episodes in a row, except keyword rule without using the same keyword 2 episodes in a row. So essentially that just means you can't just find one rule that scores high and use it again and again. So you can alternate between the keyword rule and the numbers rule, or you can use the keyword rule multiple times in a row as long as you don't use the same keyword twice in a row. Okay, that should do it for our new game design game rules for this episode. I will maintain the current list of rules and clarifications on the Discord channel. Link is below in the text. Discord will be also a good place to discuss the episode, discuss future rules, or discuss ways to improve the existing rule set. So come join us if you want to participate more deeply in the Game Design Game channel. Next time on Game Design Game. I am itching to create a new kind of game. It's going to expand the way that this channel plays. So next time we are going to explore and possibly prototype a game that you can play online on this channel. Until next time, gamers, trust no one.